Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Thanks for willing to do this.
Oh, yeah, sure. Thanks for inviting me.
So I can just kind of jump around in terms of roles in your career and everything,
Okay.
and probably focus more on things you might not have been asked. But I can just start from the beginning and ask what was the job that got you into SAG?
Oh my God. I think it was on camera because before I got into voiceover, I did some on camera stuff. And it was one of those Judge Judy shows.
Oh,
And I don't even remember the dialogue. I just remember you had to learn it really fast and show up on the set. And that, I was sort of a victim of some kind of crime. I don't remember much about it,
okay,
but it was like a Judge Judy, like a reality show.
okay.
And that's how I got into SAG-AFTRA. And it was probably through one of my on-camera agents at the time. But that's how I got in.
And how did voiceover come into play?
Voiceover came in after quite a while. I mean, I did a lot of theater in LA. First I got a BFA in theater, and then I got to LA and I did a lot of theater. I did a lot of improv. Um, and I tried to get into on camera stuff and I booked some stuff, but I did a lot of character work on stage.
Hmm.
So I'd go out for auditions and I could do the character, but I wouldn't necessarily look the part. And so then when voiceover came along, I I just started booking stuff. But there was a lot of footwork that happened before I got into voiceover that made me ready for it.
Right.
Like 10 years of theater and a lot of training. And so it's not like I just popped in and started working. I think the first voiceover gig was something that's actually been resurrected. Amazon from Diablo 2. They've actually
Oh,
redone the game. They've remastered it just
yeah.
recently. And I remember I got that through my on-camera agent. At the time, I had no idea what games, I only had played Pokemon. And I went into the audition and it was an on-camera casting office. And they were casting for this Blizzard game, Diablo 2. And I think they actually told me to look at Xena, Warrior Princess.
Oh, yeah.
So I watched a lot of her and I was like, oh man, she's so good. And that sarcastic, heroic read, that watching her really helped me get ready for that audition. And so I booked it. And I was like, oh, okay. So then I had to drive all the way down to Orange County when Blizzard was down there. And when I went in, I remember it was like really top secret. I had to sign all these papers and, everybody was quietly playing the game or at their computers. And so that was my first voiceover job, doing Amazon from Diablo 2. And it was such a good experience. They're such a great company to work for,
Mhm.
Blizzard. They really treat the actors really well. So Jason Hayes was the director. In fact, I just recently heard from him because he told me that the game came out
Okay, yeah.
again and it was remastered. So anyway,
And
that's how I got in, I think.
okay.
I
Well, because
believe
I was gonna say that it might have been before around the same time that you were in the Blade Runner game.
Blade Runner, believe it or not, I got it from Dramalog.
Oh, okay.
I actually, no, because I had a voiceover demo that I had to submit, I'm pretty sure. And so I can't remember the order, but I sent in my demo to Dramalog and it was for a union game and I booked it and I got to meet some of the cast from the original film when I
Yep.
just briefly when I go into the studio. But yeah, that one came around the same time, but I actually got that on my own.
Okay.
And then they hired me for Command and Conquer Tiberian Sun
Hmm.
to play Eva. Initiating global search for Kodiak location. So they tweaked my voice.
Yeah. With anime, then, well, do you remember what your first anime role was?
Yeah, and that's not on IMDb.
Okay.
I think it was now I could get the title wrong, but it was I want to be an angel or I'm gonna be an angel.
Oh, yeah, I know that show.
Yeah. And so I got into that, and it was really lucky because I live on the west side in LA, and it was on the west side. Most of the stuff is on in the valley. And Stephanie Shea directed it.
Yep.
And I went in and I played a mom, and I also played some other characters, including a little girl
Hmm.
that I had to record really strangely on 9/11.
Oh,
So I remember that day.
right.
But that wasn't funny. But so yeah, that was my first anime. And I remember they had something going on with the release. So I'm not sure if it was fully released or if they finished it.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was abandoned or canceled or something over here.
Yeah. Oh, and then Fui Cooley.
Fully cool, yeah.
Really Cooley. You know, it's been so long. FLCL. That I did that at the same studio.
Right.
Mark
Because
Hansen. Yeah.
I know that was one of Kari Walgren's first ever roles too was
Yeah.
in FLCL. Yeah.
Yeah. I might have bumped into her at the studio or somewhere around then. I mean,
Mhm.
I've seen her around the studios, but yeah, that was her lead role. I didn't
And
know anything about dubbing when I first got into it. So I
mhm.
really had to, luckily at that studio, they don't do it anymore, but only at that studio, they gave you the tapes ahead of time.
Oh, right.
So you could at least look at the tapes, but I had to get used to doing it to the beeps. And so I remember they were, and not expecting you to go as fast back then as they do now,
Mhm.
but so it's like a technical thing that you have to get used to. um I'm sure you've heard that a bunch of times, but definitely I had to like learn how to act with beeps and hearing the foreign language at the same time.
Mhm.
So that was
It's
tricky.
it's still interesting though because I know everybody gets used to dubbing in a different way.
Yeah, kind of like you learn to ignore and accept what you're hearing,
Right.
so you can still key in on what you're acting and so that you make it real for yourself. So
Mhm.
it definitely, starting with anime, made it more, I mean, it really challenges you to focus
Right.
and be highly technical. So it was a good training ground for learning animation characters, and you learn from the Japanese performances.
Mhm.
So it's kind of a guideline.
And I know more early roles that I think were dubbed at that same time were you were in Gunsword and Zegapane.
Zegapane, I had to drive down to Orange County to record. And mostly what I remember is other actors drawing on the scripts and telling jokes.
Okay.
But I don't remember that particular character, except she had a very whispery voice. And I don't even know if I'm doing it right. But Zegapane, yeah, she was sort of alien, I think, or
Mhm.
something. It's weird because you go into those things and you don't know, most of them, you don't have the script ahead of time and you don't know what you're going to do. So certain characters I remember more than other characters. It just depends.
Mhm.
They stick with me. But Zegapane, wow. You are digging. You're digging, kind of like a
Right.
cat in a litter box. No, not like that. I have cats, so.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't remember, what did I do in Gunsword?
It was more of well, it was like a not necessarily a central role, but it was like the impetus for a lot of things that were going on with the characters.
Yeah, okay. That was a long time ago, but I think Bob Colts,
Buckles.
yeah, I think he did. So I'm remembering little gaps of that, but I don't remember it. If it's not a big role, unless it happened on like a thing like 9/11, I don't remember it.
Okay.
Well, I could remember it, but I don't remember that one.
Well, I think there was also something called Dan Geyser 3 that you played, Cindy. That was like a central role.
You know what? I remember Cindy because her body really moved quite a bit, and I thought, wow, they really animated her.
Oh, okay.
And I remember she was wearing a bathing suit a lot. And she was kind of a powerful, sexy woman.
Hmm.
And that was with
Okay.
New Generation Pictures. And I would have to watch that again to remember the storyline. But I do remember all the bathing suits and going to the beach and her being very voluptuous.
And this is obviously moving ahead a lot, but I did think it was cool that you got to be a double villain role with Karen Strassman and Sailor Moon.
I did do some small role on Sailor Moon. I remember that. But I don't, if that was a main role, there's a couple of things on IMDb where I was looking through and I was like, oh, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure about that. Is that a smaller role?
Yeah, it was you and Karen Strassman were like it was a monster of the day kind of thing.
Okay, I do remember going in for that, but I would never have seen her in the studio. And
Right.
unless I actually watched the clip afterwards, I wouldn't know it was her. But I love Karen. She's such a phenomenal actress and she's got such a good heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've done a bunch of projects with her, but
Hmm.
not with her in the room, which is so sad.
Maybe one of the more earlier central, really big female roles that you got would have been playing Dunan in the Appleseed movie.
Oh yeah, that came after Blue. I
Okay.
was actually thinking of that. Yeah, because I booked Blue, I think, first with on Wolf's Rain, and both of them were very dramatic roles. And Dunan on Appleseed was hugely challenging for me because
Oh,
she wasn't snarky. I'm a little bit good at sexy snarky, but she was really badass. And so I had to, at that point in my life, I was like, wow, I'm playing this badass woman that saves the world.
yep.
And so that was a challenge for me. And then she had some highly emotional scenes too that I remember. I think there was a scene where she sees the hologram of her mother, and I had to cry because I don't think she ever knew her mother.
Yep.
And I had to really dig down deep because I have my mother still alive, but I was crying. The people behind the glass were crying. It was, I remember that. And I remember seeing that in the movie theater with some friends. And it was kind of like, wow, I'm in the movie theater and that's my voice up on screen.
Hmm.
But yeah, and then um, all the rest of the Appleseed stuff went to Texas.
Yep.
So I got the first shot at her, and she was a great character to play. That was directed by Mary Elizabeth brilliantly, you know.
Yeah. Well, so I was going to ask too, since I know Wolf's Rain was of like what the how it was being directed by her in general.
That was the first time I was directed by her, and I remember I was nervous the first session. I think I told this story in an interview. I mean, on a signing recently where it's a news story where it's a true story. There was fires going on in LA.
Yep.
And I discovered that day that I had suddenly become more allergic to smoke. So I came there and I was really congested, kind of spaced out to the session. I didn't tell her that because I was brand new. And I was like, I got to get it together. And I felt really weird. But because Blue came from kind of a tragic story,
Hmm.
it kind of was an interesting jumping off point because I had no idea about the storyline. And that was being directed by her. She sets you up really well with the story and the emotional, where you're supposed to be emotionally. So I would get the story, get a image of what's going on, and then beep, 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 say the line.
Yep.
That's what I remember. Maybe it's not exactly correct, and I remember I had to find Blue as a wolf and then Blue as a human being and find that transition within my body.
Okay.
The magic. I know that's weird, but but when you think about it, you're like, oh, this is a woman that is actually a wolf.
Yep.
So what's different about her? So she was a really cool character, and I still get excited about talking about her because I think her story arc was so cool, but it was very tragic, obviously,
Yeah.
you know,
That
but
is.
brilliantly directed and written. And
Yeah. Well, that is one thing I always like to ask, I guess if it would have been Blue or Dunin, if there is something else, like what's the darkest emotional headspace you've had to get into for voice acting?
Well, when you say voice acting, because then if you don't say anime, for games, I've done a lot of dark
Yeah.
women. I've done sexy, I get cast a lot as sexy dark or sexy heroines. Then I do little boys and little girls. So, you know, um, Sasha from Infamous
Okay.
was really dark. I don't know if you have ever played that game, but she was very jealous and she had black oil coursing through her body.
Hmm.
And she sort of looked like the bottom half of her looked like a squid or an octopus.
Okay.
So she just kind of like would hypnotize the player and try to coerce them into her side of viewing the world and do what and almost like hypnotize them into doing whatever she wants them to do.
Hmm.
And she was just evil. Yeah, I don't remember her voice exactly. I'd have to listen to it again. But I remember her being just like full of passion and anger and
Hmm.
rage. I would say she was the darkest character to get into
Okay.
because you have to imagine black oil running through your body.
Yeah.
Ew.
Obviously, Juri is like that too, but in a more playful, sadistic way.
Yeah, to me, she doesn't seem as dark because
Hmm.
of the way she's written. She has a lot. I mean, Sasha had some humor to her because some of her lines were so horrific that you're just like, oh my God, that's gross. But Juri is just so much fun to play. So the reason I think people like her so much is that she's supposed to be evil, but she's also so charming and entertaining, and she's really unique, kind of like the Joker in a
Hmm.
way. And the way I approach her is sort of from a twisted point of view. So getting into her is kind of a complex thing, you know, with the way I developed her. I mean, actually, I guess sometimes characters take a little while to be born, and then other characters just all of a sudden arrive.
Hmm.
And I think she was born a long time ago, but then she kind of like came together when I went to the first session
Okay.
with Taliesin directing. Yeah. So because she started out sounding like Jennifer Tilly, and then she was pitched down
Yep.
lower and given a cocktail, and we don't know. You just get into it and you just let things go and you see what happens.
And regarding doing boy voices, I have found that everybody that I've talked to who also does a lot of them has a different process for it. Do you have a specific process for boy voices?
You know, actually, at the beginning of my career, no, Nick Omana actually might have given me my first voiceover job. That's not on there. He cast me as a little boy, and I didn't even think, oh, I can do little boy voices. But I listened to little boys, and if I listened back to that one, I probably wouldn't like it that much, maybe. But I do remember being cast on Leapfrog, and they've gone through a lot of boy voices on Leapfrog.
Yeah.
And at the time, they had cast a real little boy. So they sent me an audio of a real little boy, and he was sort of mumbling, and they said, but more articulate than him.
Hmm.
So that one I kind of found within like 5 minutes. I don't
Okay.
know why. I was like, oh, I don't remember what he sounded like, but then I just made him more articulate. I think that was sort of Tad. Right. And then you pitch him up. And then they started directing him differently when I went to the sessions. And you've in those sessions, because it was animation, it was straight to DVD, I got to play around with the other actors. So
Hmm.
you're bouncing off of their performance, and that's really a lot of fun. So yeah, and developing boy voices, I think, um, and little girl voices, if you watch little kids and how their energy is, or if you're around little kids, like there's a lot of little kids in my neighborhood. So if you're around them and how their energy is, their voices are really unrestrained.
Hmm.
So I try to really warm my voice up and really relax because they don't have any tension when they're speaking or yelling.
Right.
And I, when I pitch it back, I make my voice, the back of my throat really relaxed and big.
Mhm. Well, it's pretty obscure, but I know there was like a short anime movie called Rainbow Mountain where you played one of the main boys. It was you, Cindy Robinson, and Kate Higgins.
Okay. Did Wendy Lee direct it?
Yeah.
Okay. So that one, I remember doing a boy voice. And actually, that one, I don't think I knew the title when I was doing it.
Okay.
And that was so long ago that I don't remember much about it, except you said that. And I thought, wow, you do dig up stuff. It's like you've got a shovel and you're just like going, yes, I'm going to, it's buried treasure.
Right.
Yeah. So I do remember doing that, but it's a long time ago.
Okay.
So I didn't see them in the studio and I never found clips afterwards. So I didn't even know it was called that.
Yep. Okay.
Is that on IMDb?
No, it's Anime News Network.
Crazy. I like the name though. I like that I'm part of Rainbow Mountain.
Yep.
Oh, to live on Rainbow Mountain. All right.
Well, I did see it on your YouTube channel that even though it is more obscure, being Taruto, Magical Meow Meow.
Oh, I love Taruto because I love cats, and that was a lead, and I totally remember that.
Yep.
And I also had the cast party at my house.
Oh, that's
So,
cool.
so I remember that completely. And I got to say meow at the end of my sentences just about all the time. And I loved her story arc. You know, isn't it funny? I love little kid stuff. So I play really dark characters that are evil and conniving, but then I just love the little kid stuff because I remember feeling really good after all those sessions. And I had to get my energy going, and she was really innocent and fun, and she made a lot of mistakes, but she didn't care. I don't remember the voice. I heard it for a second. I was listening to it, but well, that's all for today. I'll try again tomorrow. And then she would go, meow.
Yeah.
It's probably a little bit higher,
Mhm.
but yeah. And then she had a whole magic thing where she had other kitty cats chasing after her because they wanted her powers. And she's like going, what powers? I don't have any powers. And then at the end, she has powers and she's a princess of all the kitties. It was awesome.
Definitely, like the first voice that got of yours that got installed in my head was Pi in the Dot Hack series.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, Pi. That was a long time ago too. Although they did do they resurrected the game. And so I had a few lines for her Pi. But originally that was a really main character.
Yep.
And Pi to me was a little harder than some of the other characters because she was directed by two different people, went to two different studios. I don't know why that happened. Sometimes it does because maybe there was a long gap and maybe they were busy, who knows. But Sam Riegel directed me, and I remember she had a very emotional scene right off the bat. Right. So I do remember that because I went into the studio and I remember I wasn't feeling that good that day, but I got to channel it into that scene. So it worked out really well. So that's what I do is like, oh, how am I feeling today? Ooh, I feel kind of off, but I channeled it into the scene where that cloud of whatever demon cloud,
Ida.
what is it?
Ida.
Yeah, what you said comes into her mouth and she's like, she swallows it.
Yep.
I remember doing that and it actually made me feel kind of cathartic. It was kind of cathartic for me to do it because afterwards I had let go of how I was feeling that day. But she was more kind of gritty when I did the first session, or a little more emotional or something. Maybe the storyline was that. But then when I got directed by Tony Oliver, it seemed like she had more informational lines. And that was a little harder for me at the time, only because I think I hook into characters when there's a lot of emotion. Back then I did. And she didn't quite have as much emotion or grit as some of the other characters.
Right.
She evolved. But I really liked her. She was a good, challenging character to play. I liked her look, like
Yeah,
sexy studious.
yeah, definitely. In terms of video games too, I'm also a big fan of the Samurai Dynasty Warriors games. I know that you got to play Ina.
Ina. Ina was pretty confident. She was a warrior. I played a lot of warriors.
Mhm.
I'm trying to remember what Ina was like. I don't remember it completely. I'd have to hear her again. But I
Okay.
remember her being popular
Yep.
and sassy and heroic and badass.
Mhm.
Sassy, heroic, badass. That's what I do quite a bit. Are you like an expert on all of these things? On all
Well,
these titles?
um, some of the games I mentioned, that's like stuff I kind of grew up with too. So
Is Adam Driver your dad?
it's really funny because I just did Jeff Nimoy um the other
Oh, you
day,
did? Oh my God, that's amazing.
and then when he posted on Twitter, Lex Lang commented, "Oh, I didn't know Adam Driver did like voice actor interviews."
You know, you look like the younger, better looking of Adam, and it's also your voice. So you
Oh,
have the dark hair, and you've got that kind of
thanks.
haircut that just stays there, but
Mhm.
also, kind of cool but floppy, but your voice is really deep like his. Have you ever thought about getting into voice acting?
I actually took classes for it for a while where I am in Minneapolis, and I
Oh, cool.
didn't I didn't pursue it further than classes, but yeah, it was fun to uh, get behind a mic and everything.
Yeah. So other people have said Adam Driver too.
Yeah,
That's funny. Yeah, because you've got a great voice.
thanks.
And you sound sort of like him.
Because I started when I started with interviews, the first LA voice actress I did was Wendy Lee, and then it kind of just went from there.
Right.
And I've done like on camera people too, but I mostly like to focus on voice actors and stuff that they probably haven't really talked about.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, well, getting into voice acting, I mean, some people plan for it and other people, like I didn't plan to get into voice acting,
Hmm.
but as I started doing it, stuff started happening. So it just was like, oh, I guess I'll go this way, but I would say probably everyone's different though.
Yep.
For me, all my theater training and all my stuff, all the characters that I did up on stage really helped me prepare for that.
And I was about to ask, since it's a more popular series, do you remember many details about the two different characters you played in Persona 4?
Yeah, because that just came up. Saki, I'd have to listen to her again, but she
Okay.
died, didn't she? Oh, we don't want to give that away if someone hasn't played it. Yeah, Saki was sort of timid, so maybe I'd have to listen to her voice again, but maybe it was a little like that. Hanako was a big girl and kind of goofy. I really liked playing her. I remember. I think she was something like, I don't know, she was loud. I'd have to say. I just came across her and I have to remember how I did her, but she had kind of a snarky voice. Um, and she was kind of clumsy and goofy and kind of a comedic character. So that was interesting. I had more of a serious role. I'd have to listen to how I did them again to be
Okay.
exact. But yeah. So when I played those I like playing different characters because I like jumping around to different things because it's kind of fun to experience one character and experience the emotion and their reality, and then all of a sudden jump into another reality.
Right.
I actually like playing multiple roles.
Well,
So
I
I
know
like,
that was the same case with the some of the Tales games, Tales of series.
well, Muse, I really remember because she was a pretty main character
Yep.
and she had a huge story arc. So I was always confused by Muse because sometimes she was kind of innocent and sexy, and other times she was being comedic, and other times she was being serious, and then sometimes she'd get really mad.
Hmm.
She was all over the place, I remember. And I was like, whoa, it's kind of like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
Yep.
But she was a lot of fun. Wendy Lee directed me in that. And then the other character, I remember her look, but I don't remember the sessions quite as much. She was more of the hero, I think, character. I'd have to remember.
Okay.
But she had green hair and she was good looking.
Hmm.
So I do remember that. But another one of those characters that is kind of heroic and sassy, maybe. I'd have to remember. I'd have to see her video. It's a lot of characters. You can't remember 100 and whatever characters or whatever it is.
Can you relate to anything about Hiroko Danganronpa?
I don't smoke. I don't have pink hair. But I did have them interview me. There was an interview that was specifically for that game. So I did review it like a year or two ago.
Okay.
And I do remember the session. It wasn't that long of a session. It was like maybe an hour or two. But I think the thing that I'm similar to is sometimes I'm laid back, although today I'm a little bit hyper. So, but sometimes I'm really laid back and zen, and I kind of sit back and go, oh, this is going on. This is very interesting. I could comment on this and this, and this kind of crazy, but I'm not going to get ruffled, you know? So I guess in that way, similar to her. So kind of cool. She has a sort of sense of humor that comes out.
Is it, well, I guess in terms of just all the characters you played, regardless of anime or games, like who do you relate to the most, do you think?
No. You know, I used to say, I don't know now. I really actually don't know now. But
Okay.
when I first started, I would say it was a combination of Blue and Taruto
Okay.
when I first started. Because Blue, I think there were certain things about myself that I was a little bit reserved and I was discovering at that time, but I had a like an undercurrent of emotion and things that I was going through in my life
Hmm.
that were sort of interesting and magical in a way. So then comes in Taruto, who doesn't understand her own magic. And she's just kind of all over the place, but then she finds herself at the end of the story. So I think a long time ago, that was my story arc where
Okay.
I didn't, when I first got into voice acting, I didn't know that I was going to land there. And I actually got kind of a lot of secondary or lead roles right away, almost, you know, after a couple of series, then I got leads and I
Hmm.
got on some interesting games right away with lots of dialogue. So I wasn't quite ready. So I was like, I mean, I wasn't quite ready for all of what it meant. And
Hmm.
then as I experienced my career over the years, then I started landing a little bit more, going, oh, okay, this is what voiceover is about, you know.
Hmm.
Um, but at the beginning, I was a little like having a good time, but a little uncomfortable, like, wow, this is a lot, but cool.
What about with Juri? Is there anything that you can relate to or no?
I think her sarcasm, you
Okay.
know, I'm a little bit goofy and sarcastic. And also, I do have a skewed view of the world sometimes. Like, I kind of see things in cartoon, and I kind of think that she sees things in a kind of dark cartoon.
Yeah.
You know, kind of like I think I'm naturally high, but not in a good way. Kind of like sometimes it just depends. But I just see the world a little bit differently. I used to draw cartoons when I was a kid. So I think if you do anything, if you're an artist, you see into the fabric of reality in a
Yeah.
different way, you know, depending on who you are. When I was a little kid, I used to draw cartoons of little teddy bears, but they would say kind of nasty things. So I mean, they would say kind of off the wall sarcastic things that teddy bears wouldn't say.
Yeah.
So when I got Juri, Jennifer Tilly was uh, an inspiration only because before I got into voice acting, I was in an acting class David Beard was in it. And David Beard was a writer director at the time, and he knew a lot of people in Hollywood. So I got to meet a bunch of people through him, or they came into class. And so just kind of hanging out with her. And I think she has kind of a laid back voice, kind of a little bit mysterious.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'd have to listen. I was just finding her in Chucky. So she's kind of sexy, but she's got a secret.
Yep.
And she's also, there's a darkness to her where you're like, what kind of games does she play behind closed doors? And she was kind of like that in person, but I don't really know who she was, but
okay.
But it's just like I get the essence of somebody and then I base it on her. So I actually like creating characters that are different from me.
Mm-hmm.
So Jennifer Tilly is very different from me. But I found it really exciting to experience her view of the world. And then it became something completely different from her because she's a killer. She knows Taekwondo. Jennifer Tilly doesn't seem very athletic. And also Juri has these lines that are just incredible. So, I think you just allow the dialogue and the direction and your imagination to take over.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually think that's the best time that you have is when you don't know what you're going to do. So Juri is really part of me, but a lot of it is just made up.
Right. Yeah.
Stuff I make up. Those two games, Diablo 2 and Blade Runner, I still have them. I wonder if they're worth more money. And I played them all the way through. And then it's just funny that they're coming out again around the same time. They're redoing them and remastering them.
Yeah.
But I did play Amazon when she came out in Diablo 2. I got the game and I played it with other people. And so that was wild to do that. And I got to say that line, I've got a bad feeling about this, Yeah. She said that, but I don't know if that's exactly how she said it, but I get to say that line. It's a common line that comes up in games.
And the question with the way that I end every interview I do is asking, what do you want your legacy to be?
Oh, I don't know. I would just like to do different things. So I played a lot. I actually really, really enjoy all the characters that I played. And so I would like to get into more comedy and wacky characters. So I guess my legacy would be that you can do a lot of different things in voiceover. And it doesn't matter what you look like, that the legacy would be, oh, she did this a long time ago. We never knew that she could do this. And neither did I. Just to surprise myself. And I think right now, and actually I wrote some things about the core phrase of what's going to happen next. So you don't really know what's going to happen next in your life. And actually in acting, I think if you do not know what's going to happen next, that's where the magic is. Where you just kind of fly and go, I have no idea where this character is going. I'm just going to let go and see where it takes me. And so I think I'd like my legacy to be that.
Okay.
That you just let it go and see what else you can do and achieve. So, because I definitely think voice acting and the journey I had in my life has changed me quite a bit. But in the end, I think you just go back to who you were originally.
Yeah.
As a kid, it's that kind of journey of like finding your home inside of yourself, which is kind of wacky.
Cool.
Wacky, weird, and wonderful, and kind of laid back. There's so many different things that you can be as a voiceover actor. So I would like to have that be my legacy.
Okay. Well, that's a great answer. Well, thanks. I'm glad that we got to do this.
Yeah. So thank you, Chris. And I really appreciate you asking for the interview.
Yeah,
You
no
asked
problem.
some really, really hard questions that made me really think that, wow, I don't remember that. And then other things you do remember. Here's to COVID kind of winding down and seeing more people.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.